Here we are, bottom of the Smash Mountain. I would like to thank all my Patreon supporters at patreon.com/bsmpod for continuing to support me in what I'm doing, especially my senior producers. Shouts out to Ventus Official and to PK Smokey with Eternal Project, and also my mom and dad. Love y'all. Thank you all, everybody, for your support. And we are live on twitch.tv/cypher0033. It's a whole thing. Just look at the link tree in the description below. It's a whole thing. I cannot help the fact that my socials are not all the same, but what I can help is bringing in super awesome, excellent people to talk to in the Melee scene. One of my favorite things of all time is to bring someone forward who is not always in front of the camera, and Flashburn is about the most behind the camera person that you might find at a big event like Big House or at the Ludwig Smash Invitational. Flashburn has been involved with running streams for a very, very long time, and so I am I'm gonna have some questions about technical stuff, which I'm sure at some point. But for now, Flashburn, thank you so much for joining me. It's an honor to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It is true. I really, it is kind of weird being on this side of the camera for once. You know, like we've talked about. You know, it's kind of joking, but like, yeah. I remember I used to be known for a couple of commentary bits, but I don't get to do commentary anymore or like really appear on camera because someone's got to stream it. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, so I want to get into a Patreon question right away. This is from PK Smokey, who's interested in seeing what all the beatboxing is about. This would have been something that you would have done in front of a camera. It's in your Twitter bio, so I looked at your YouTube to see if it was pinned at the top or something, but instead it was a really cool Luigi combo video, which also is fun.
Yeah. Oh man. Wow, we're going straight to that, huh? Yeah. I've had a couple of different phases before Melee, or like I guess things that I did. One of them is beatboxing. Another one, I decided to bring out a very old shirt. If y'all know about this, but yeah, like it was like Halo, hence Flashburn 117, and then I did my time with competitive beatboxing, which I actually started like at the same, like pretty much the same day I started competitively beatboxing was the same day I started playing Melee. Funnily enough.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was the day before summer break in December of 2010. Like right before and yeah, so beatboxing, yeah, I took beatboxing pretty seriously, and like I've never taken Melee like at least competitive like super seriously, but like Melee was like always, oh, I really like this game, it's really fun, and I've got a lot of friends, and like, but beatboxing was like the hard grind for a while. But I don't know how, but like Halo didn't last because the game has issues and like the franchise's issues. Beatboxing didn't last just like for like personal reasons and like the way the scene went. And then the one that I didn't take seriously at all like has lasted all of them like beyond measure, and just like I ended up here we are, you know.
It turned into a whole thing for you, did Melee, because you treat this as your career now, right?
Yeah, I'm full time. I still haven't made like an official announcement of this, but so if somebody is people who've been following like I guess Melee every day, Juna as well, we recently got a partnership, in partnership with Waveform Entertainment, which is like a much bigger I guess event organization, broadcasting company. They're like the proper like big name, like you could argue like AAA level. I mean it's hard to gauge it, you know, in the world of esports, because esports is such like a wild west deal, right?
Yeah,
you know, they do big stuff, and we just had the right connections. We garnered some friendships, and so with that partnership, it really made it like viable for a full-time job, because I've been doing this since I've been doing the streaming deal since I think 2015ish, and that of course was just like very small things. I used to TO a lot, like in our local Chicago scene. I used to drive around with 10 CRTs in my car at all times, and yeah, that wasn't exactly the most like easy to financially like I guess and like sustain myself. And it was like that, and I did beatboxing still, so it was kind of like I really like transitioned slowly from like beatboxing and other side jobs whilst also doing like some Melee stuff to now like Melee is my everything, and it's not just Melee anymore. I do other esports now, which is like super hype. But I will always love this game as much as I've complained about it and like many aspects about it. I will always have this game close to my heart, and that's why I have however many copies of it right there. I don't know how many.
I was thinking it would be fun to try to beatbox a Melee song. Do you want me to go first, or are you not interested in doing it at all?
No, I'll do it. I will always do it if people ask. It's just I tend to not throw it out there because I always feel bad. I feel like I'm like party tricking people and trying to like show off. I never want to be that guy. But if people ask, I will absolutely oblige. What song were you thinking of?
Okay, well, I was going to say, I'm going to do one, and you tell me if you recognize the song, what the song is, what I'm trying to do. And then you can go, and hopefully I'll get it because you're better at the beatboxing thing than me. Now, am I allowed to do any kind of music, or sorry, like notes at all? Or is it just pure beatboxing? You have to get it off of like the percussive beat.
Anything. It is anything that you create, just you, without like use of technology or an instrument, essentially is the way we do it. And yeah, so actually, fun of this, we would kind of, well, this is like a modified version. We used to have something called the beatbox game. This small tangent. The way the beatbox game worked was you would it's almost like the equivalent of like a friendly setup at like a tournament, but of course, as opposed to where only 4 people can really, well, I guess you want more than 4, but really only 4 people can set it a friendly setup, right? And you usually do a rotation. Well, there's you're not limited to 4 people in beatboxing. What we do is everyone would crowd around, and it's really like a music festival for battles. You would crowd around, and then somebody would start a beat, and it was almost like you were in a huddle with everybody, and then you would do 4 bars or 8 bars or 16 bars, and you would pass it, and the other person would try to take the beat from you and then apply their own styles, and you would just kind of go all the way around, and just like it was a good way to kind of flow your style with other people and kind of collaborate. And it was really cool because most of the time you didn't speak the same language as the other person. You just kinda like,
yeah, that's really cool.
Like, I speak beatbox. That's all it is.
Well, that sounds dangerously awkward to do over a Discord call. I think if we just limit it to, I'll do something, see if you can guess what song of from Melee it is, and then you can do one and I'll take a guess. I feel like that'll be better than trying to, and it sounds a lot like, you get a bunch of artists together who are playing guitar or they're playing horns or drums, and you're doing jazz, you're doing freestyle, that kind of thing. It just sounds like that's how it worked for beatboxing when you would go to not fests. I'm already equating it to Melee terms, but when you go to
you could call them fests, honestly. It's not too far off.
That's awesome. So yeah, let's do the game version of it. I feel like if I try to roll with you, I'm gonna get lost really, really fast because everybody, I'm in the camp of, I know what beatboxing is. I've watched videos on YouTube for like, an hour 10 years ago. And so I think I'm pretty serious about this whole beatboxing. That's the level I'm at. I'm such a scrub. So let me do this song. I'm just going to think of one first because I actually didn't have one in mind. I think, okay. No, because I don't want to do something. I kept thinking of something from the legal stages. I'm trying to do something that's off of the legal stage list. Okay. All right. I have one. You ready?
Yep. Go for it. Do I buzz in when I feel like I know it?
Huh?
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was sure if I buzz. That's got to be Pokemon Stadium.
Okay,
or I guess like a Pokemon the theme. I guess.
I forget what it's actually called, but I always think of it as the Pokefloat song because it does not play on Pokemon.
You're right. It's the battle theme. Oh no, I'm
no, because you're right. The Silver and Gold medley plays on Pokemon Stadium as an alt song, but the Pokefloats one that I'm thinking of, that only plays on Pokefloats. It doesn't play on Pokemon Stadium in Melee.
Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, because I remember like the slight alternate songs, but yeah, that's true. Man, Pokemon just has the battle themes. I'm not I'm not like a Pokemon historian, but there's people who are like, oh, I know exactly what battle this is from what generation. I can't do that. But
no,
at least I got Pokemon.
That's not me either. I just go, it's the Melee one. It's on Pokefloats. It's one of the best stages. Okay, when you have one in mind, you can go ahead and go, and I'll press the button when I'm ready to take a guess.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna do.
I love that. That would be Big Blue, not Mute City, because I kept wanting to say the Falcon one, but I know there's like 3 of them. Big Blue. I love Big Blue. That was really good, by the way.
Oh man, I should have warmed up. I was not expecting this, so I did not warm up my voice. But that's I'm a big fan of that song, especially when like certain groups cover it, like what is it, Super Soul Bros, when they did that at SmashCon in like 2016. I loved that. They didn't even do it on the stage; they were like in their booth. That was super dope.
Is there a recording of that? Please tell me there's a recording of that.
I don't have there's no recording of it there, but there is a recording of it at a different event where they're just doing like Big Blue, and I love that arrangement they do for it. Okay, and then also I'm
gonna look that up now so that I don't forget. Soul Bros, right?
Super Soul Bros.
Oh, Super Soul Bros. Yeah. Okay, there's a version of Big Blue that was arranged specifically for Smash Remix, the expanded Super Smash Bros. 64 mod, and they put in Big Blue into that game. Super fun, and they have like this nice little synth solo that they put into it, and they increased the tempo just a little bit. So I love that version of that song. I'll have to send that to you. If I can multitask at the same time. Well, that was really fun. Thank you so much for playing along. I like you, if I have a quote unquote party trick that I have in the back of my brain, beatboxing is fairly specific. It's like Melee as a party trick where you go, no, it's the one from the GameCube, but I have it in my car. If I could bring it in, I got 10 CRTs. Let's get a fest going.
Yeah. Pretty much. Sometimes I just show up as like, yo, you guys just want to like just play some Melee. I got like 10 setups in my car. Sometimes I just go to places and tournaments happen.
Is there a time where you remember feeling like I was born for this moment, where somebody is saying something that is very specific? It's almost like from a movie or from a story focused video game. I'm not thinking necessarily of something like The Last of Us or Super Mario Galaxy. Wait, no, that's gameplay focused. That's neither here nor there. Can you think of a time where you're in a moment and you go, this is literally what I was born for. It's time to lay down the fattest beatboxing beat of all time, make everybody go super wow, awesome, as compared to a moment where you try to make it a moment, but everybody's cringing at you because it was not the move?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because like when you go on I very much tried to make my like time on stage tried to make it business as usual. I'm not gonna say I don't get stage fright. There's 2 kinds of people who get stage fright and people who are lying. At least a small amount, right? You get more used to it, so like it's hard to like pick that out. I guess like for me, my college here in Chicago, they have like open mic nights, and it was like, oh, this is like the first open mic of this year. And I went in, and I just like nobody knew who I was. I was a freshman, and just went in, and just went in, and I went in hard, and I was a lot worse back then than I am now. And people were just like, I do like it when it completely takes people like way off guard and everything. Like there's also there's people who like see like, oh, beatboxing, but they have like a perception of what beatboxing is, and then it still like goes way beyond what they think. But like it's even better when they don't even know like that I beatbox or like have like too much of a preconceived notion of it.
There was the most recent thing, it's not pure beatboxing. It was this like loop station, some kind of battle thing that everybody was like super freaking out over the loop beats that these people were creating in a battle setting. And there's one really, really viral one that I think nearly everybody on YouTube, it has like 60 million views. I watched that one maybe a year ago. I just remember thinking it's really cool to put that into a loop station where you can have a little bit more freedom to lay down a beat that you're making purely with your mouth, and then putting on chord progressions, being able to do wacky weird stuff with it as you are continuing to build. Because I think the first time I saw a loop station was when I was really young. I didn't understand it, but then I became an Ed Sheeran fan who uses a loop station when he plays live. He historically, I don't think he's toured with a band yet. It's just been him. When he goes up on stage, he uses a loop station the entire time with his guitar. He builds his beats, and then he sings his songs. But then seeing what a professional loop station person does, super cool. when you're just using
Yeah.
your mouth to do everything.
I remember when like loop stations were really becoming the meta, if you will say. Also, say it's I'll get into this more later, but it's funny that you bring up beatboxing because I actually love the amount of parallels that beatboxing has with Melee and Smash in general. And honestly, like I want to make a whole video essay on that at some point, but I just haven't had the time or the concentration to edit anything. But yeah, so yeah, loop stations. I will say if it was anything recent, right? I mean, honestly, loop stations have only really been around for so long. Like the battles, I probably know exactly the video you're talking about. And if it's one of the older guys, I probably know them in person. But they're
Desku.
like they're like it's definitely like a different style. It's almost man, it's just thinking about like the different ways that beatboxing is done compared to also different ways that Smash is played. So for example, I don't know if you knew this, but there are doubles in beatboxing and there are also
Ooh.
crews in beatboxing.
Ooh.
It's like, and then also they do like country crews. Like I remember, I think it was like Grand Beatbox Battle, like in 2016 or whatever. It was like Belgium versus like Russia, and it was like the Belgian group just came out with this like house beat that they clearly were saving for like, okay, we gotta bust things, or we're not gonna make it the next round. It's very cool. It's like I don't know. It makes it sound very anime because everything's like a tournament arc, just like in Smash. But you know, it's
No, but it's
yeah.
it's really cool to okay, so competition it not all of us are built to be on stage and to sing a solo, right? But if you are the kind of person who enjoys playing singles, or if you enjoy playing doubles, you enjoy playing in crews, there's like different reasons to enjoy playing in each of those settings. And you might decide after a little bit, okay, competition is too stressful, it's not for me. But I think everybody ultimately wants to see when they're younger, okay, am I built for trying to be the best at something? Because it adds the protagonist arc to your head. We all watch stuff growing up. It's different shows or movies or playing video games, and you put yourself into the role of whatever you're engaging with in entertainment. So you can't help it when you get to a certain point where you try something within a competition setting. I've played sports, and of course nowadays I play Melee somewhat competitively. Not really. And I podcast about Melee and I say I want to be the best that ever was, I guess. I don't know. But I love competition, watching it. I love watching Melee. I love watching sports because I think that you get a chance to show people what you can do in a moment where you're called upon to do it. And I performed on stage a little bit in high school. I know exactly what you're talking about with stage fright and stuff. It was always the moment before that killed me. And as soon as it started, I'd be fine. I'd be okay. But it was always the moment before walking out that I would go, I hate this. This is dumb. I don't want to do this. I'd walk out and be like, this is the best thing ever. I would live for this. Why did I hate the idea of coming out here 30 seconds ago?
Yeah, I almost I liken it. Funnily enough, I recently, like within like the last few months, I've gotten over my fear of roller coasters, and I would say that stage fright is exactly kind of like roller coasters in a sense where like when you're going up, you're like and you're like, oh god, like what have I done? I have strapped myself to this like constructed piece of just like metal and wood and just about to fling me all over, and you're like, oh god. And then once you get to the top and you start going, it's like you've just like I've seated control. It is what it is now, and then you just go. And then when you step, like you're like about to step on stage, it's like, oh man, like oh this is gonna be rough, and and they're like, and up next Cypher 003, and you step out on stage and you're just like in the spot, you're like, ah, well, it is what it is now.
It can't go that badly. Most people, I mean, that's the other thing that you can really benefit from. Most people actually want you to succeed. It's not what you make it out to be in your head where everybody wants you to fall down and fall flat on your face and fail. Most people are just saying, all right, you do your thing. We're not going to lift you up per se, but nobody's necessarily trying to tear you down at the same time. It's a comforting thought for me.
Yeah, and so this actually opens up a very interesting conversation because so we're talking about things where we were performing on stage, and there's a great video essay about I think I wish I could remember exactly what it is, but it's kind of like why I started caring about Smash, or like it's like specifically Melee focused or whatever. It's the image is just like a silhouette of Falcon's knee, and it was just this guy who just like got into Melee and like watched the Smash talk, and like I don't think he was like a big YouTuber before, but it was like a really good video talking about like how like technically he became a sports fan even though he doesn't like sports, but he likes Melee and it's like a sport.
Oh yeah,
And
Melee's and why Melee's a great esport. Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
that I think that or spectator sport, I believe it is. I think so. But yeah,
It's
so that's a
okay.
good video.
I'm
link it
already
somewhere,
in
maybe.
looking up stuff mode. Yes, Thing of Beauty. Super Smash
Oh, Thing of
Bros.
Beauty,
as
yeah.
spectator sport.
Yeah, there you go.
1.8 million views. Let's go.
So I bring that up because I always like to have very specific sites for my memories of lines, whatever. But in that video, the narrator says, when you play, or like, or at least I think it's from that video. But when you play a fighting game or like anything in front of people, it's not that you're a competitor. You are also a performer. And so if you think about that kind of interestingly, it also gets into the mindset of like how it kind of weirds people out, especially I feel like very especially in Melee because it's such a flashy game, you know, and like we have so many like I guess societal and like cultural stigmas about like how people play. So like it's you've seen that axis chart where it's like this side is like I don't respect you and this side is I respect you and this side is you're good and this side is you're bad. So it's like if you're good and I respect you, you're like you're godlike, and if you're really bad but I still respect you, you're like LMAO my goat, whatever. And it's like, oh, and if you're good but I don't respect you, you're a cheeser, you know? So it's so interesting and probably not the best for a lot of people's like I guess mental health situation when you're thinking about it, because like when you go on stage and you're doing you and it's generally like it's not an objective thing, right? You know, because like as much as you can kind of like make objective I guess observations about things like beatboxing or any sort of art, if it as long as it has like a distinguished understanding of how it goes, it's still overall up to interpretation. Someone can be like, well, I didn't like that, or like I did like that, but doesn't necessarily make it good or bad. But in Smash and in Melee in particular, it's like there is an objective winner, and this is where like this interesting I guess dichotomy of like how people view like the style of like Smash and like I guess in juxtaposition to like I said the performing arts, whereas in battles, the competitive aspect of beatboxing, you had to pick a winner, right? And it was done by a panel of judges, and there's so many battles, a lot of mine in particular, that were very controversial decision wise. And you know, a lot of people like, oh well, I definitely think like so and so, like, oh, this person actually won, even though the judges are like, I don't know what the judges are hearing, or like it was different when you were there and it was live and it sounded so differently in the recording. And then in Melee or in Smash and like all competitive aspects, you have a winner and you have a loser, and that is, I mean, you know, except for like in sports where like, oh, maybe this ref like threw it or whatever. At least in video games, there's an objective winner and loser, and that you would think that would be the end of it, but people still like weirdly enough do like all like they John a lot, you know. It's like, oh, you know, Mango would have probably won if he didn't just go out there and try to dare and SD it like 15%, and then he got gimped, and it was, you know,
That is the there's not only just an expectation of how you're supposed to play Melee on the screen, there's also a very odd and interesting how you're supposed to behave in the community. Like you're almost supposed to be the character that you play. You're almost supposed to kind of model yourself after the play style that you put onto the screen. Everybody who wants to play like Mango can't play like Mango because they are missing something, and we all just sort of subconsciously recognize that. Like maybe the player hasn't played as long as Mango, or maybe they don't play like Mango at all, even if they say, oh, Mango's my hero, and then you watch them play and you go, don't really see any similarities in the gameplay, or maybe they're like such a much more quiet person. They don't have the same kind of like personality traits. Like, you don't have any Norwalk in you. What are you talking about? But we have not only just play styles, it's also about kind of how you behave outside of the game. One of my favorite examples of someone who I would describe as a cheeser is Fiction, because of the relentless laser play. But Fiction is a beloved person in SoCal, and most of the time across the whole Melee scene, everybody loves Fiction. By the way, I don't hate Fiction, for the record. I just look at the play style and I go, there's a disconnect in my brain between the play style and how Fiction is received. And most people just go, Fiction's cool, let's go. And it's because of also outside of the game stuff. So it makes for a very layered, interesting, and that's one of the reasons why Melee is cool. We've spent such a long time playing in person. Playing online is a little bit different for sure, but for most of Melee's life, and now coming back from not the pandemic, it's not over. You know what I'm saying? But when we have all these in-person events again, it's like, what's the difference between playing Hungrybox online and playing him in person when you can feel the pop-up energy building within him in game 5 and you go, oh, or when you're watching that happen, when you're watching Jmook go up against Hungrybox for the how many 10th million time in a row this year, and you're going, please Jmook, please, and it doesn't happen. It's heartbreaking. Hungrybox doesn't even pop off because he even recognizes how heart-wrenching it is for Jmook, that kind of thing. It involves so much that's why the videos like Melee's a great spectator sport succeed, because everybody might think that, they just might not be able to put it as eloquently as a video essay. And yes, that one, very good one. When I watched that, I was like, yes, I totally get it now. It's all clicked. Kind of. I understand Melee more. Kind of. I could talk about it with more people. Yes, that part was true. It's super fun.
Yeah, I think especially with that video, you and I are also I making a judgment on the community, but like you and I are in a bit of the minority of people who like traditional sports as well as Melee and other competitive endeavors.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that, but that's why I love that whole thing. The whole statement in that video was just like, oh man, I like sports, and I don't like any of the other sports ball, but this is sports, and also it's theater, you know. That's definitely a good point. And then I think another thing about the whole pop off energy and like being in person, I think it was a Core A video, but mentioning, or actually I think it was a Sajam like aside video that he does, talking about how, especially when experiencing salt or like even like hype or like whatever, just emotion, it's different when you are. It's different when you're in person, like at a major on the big stage. It's different when you're in pools with your homies. It's different when you're at home just playing net play, like just like with nobody seeing you. And it's also different even when you're just like streaming, like even just like this. Funnily enough, when we streamed GMO over the weekend, and Bobby Big Balls did not submit his camera. He said it's just because he didn't want to put clothes on, so that might be a different thing. But there's a great I guess. Actually, it might have been a Brian F video, but like this is the video that I'm referring to, talking about how when you get salty on your stream, and you know, like it's somewhat true when you're in person, but like if you get salty on your stream, unless you just turn off your stream, you can't just like get salty and like walk away, you know, and like spike your controller off where no one can see. You would think like captive audience. You are actually a captive entertainer in a way, and that's the like managing your salt on like your own streams, or like, you know, when it's like literally just a POV of you, can also affect people very greatly, because you know, people are like, oh, if I lose this match, you know, everyone's gonna call me a fraud, you know, and just like I don't want to act, you know, that gets to me, but you don't want to let it, you know, it's definitely can detract in all different ways, you know, just the psychology of just playing the games and competition, you know, and new avenues that we have in this current day and age.
So speaking of running these streams and everything, we haven't talked about that a lot. I would love to hear, and you gave a really great just 30-second synopsis of how you came to be within Melee and how Melee every day. I mean, it's so cool to be part of Waveform that you can make it a legitimate thing for, I don't know, for yourself, because, you know, as much passion or excitement or love that you have for Melee, like most of us do, that does not translate into paying for the bills, and it doesn't translate to being, you know, we haven't said this yet. Congratulations on getting engaged. Big ups, big ups. That's super cool. You don't have a chance to do that if you are not able to make money. So when you were doing the TO gig and coming away with very little money, despite what some people might say, you're not overlording or being the landlord of your local Melee community. No, this is grassroots as grassroots as it can get. You know, you're making a pile of mud essentially with some of these operations, and when you get to the point where you realize I'm starting to actually build on something here. Flashburn, what was that moment for you when you realized, wait a minute, maybe I can turn this into something? Because there were probably a few of them, but what comes to mind when you think of going from a mindset of, I really enjoy doing this, I hope it can, oh wait, I actually have a chance to make this into something for myself?
All right, I think the really like, I guess the time when I really thought that I was like I guess a significant or at least legitimate player in like the broadcast production world, and like I guess like on the Smash side of broadcast and stuff like that, was actually if y'all remember 5 Days of Melee, because I can't not remember it. That was a 2 or 3 week or whatever it was mad dash and not a lot of
Bender, yeah.
sleeping. Whew. Yeah, because like I it does go in phases, because like I just the way I started was Juna was just like doing the local like our local like monthly scene, and was just like just posted on Chicago Melee. Hey, does anybody have like a microphone we can use, and like maybe like a laptop? Was like ours died, and I was like, I'm the kind of person where if somebody just like asks for like help and I have no like reason to say no, yeah, why not, And turns out that we lived like a couple blocks from each other downtown, and then I walked over and I brought my laptop and my headsets and stuff like that, and then Mac D was sitting on the couch and then I played and I got smoked or whatever. That was an interesting like first time experience for that. But yeah, it just went from there. That was kind of like the first step of like, oh, I'm doing a thing, and now like they kept asking me back. I was like, all right, cool, but I didn't think it was serious. And then eventually, when we were asked to, I sadly can't remember the first time we were asked to be like, to go out and do something. I guess out of region, or like
Right.
not even out of Chicago. Probably was like Smash and Splash or something like that. We picked off where if you're old school, Windy City Melee, or Windy City Smash, was way back in the day. Shout out to Webbs, who's still around. Yeah, like we did stuff like Smash Splash. We did a couple local things, a couple things in Indiana, and then I think there were like a handful of tournaments where we side streamed, and like I don't even know if we really got paid for them or whatever. Like it was very weird. Like I know I didn't get paid for them at the time. Maybe there was an arrangement, or like, yeah, there was like an issue with Smash as a whole is like, and actually this is a quote from Jackzilla, a good friend of ours, who does a lot of like work with, I guess, like workplace and like workplace, I guess, optimization, and like I guess I can't remember exactly what Jack does, but melee mostly, but Smash as a whole is very reliant and almost like built off of heroism, if you get it, which goes back to the whole like anime, like, oh, I'm gonna be the best, like make something. But if you think about like how many times, anybody in the chat, how many times has like melee or melee mostly, but Smash in general, but how many times has melee like died? How many times has something, or at least at the time considered like cataclysmic, like comes down and like absolutely terrible? I can think of like the whole issues with like what was it with like the Genesis and the pound payouts or something like that, and like the whole big house cancellation. Like there's so many things, like how many of these things have just gone so poorly, and that's for like at the greater like community, but even like within single events, like everybody was worried when Genesis got pushed back until April, right? Me in particular as well, because I was on staff for that, and I was like, oh man, like what are we gonna do? And then we came up with Genesis and stuff like that. And even then, like Genesis and 5 Days of Melee are products of this said heroism. And it's weird how like you can think that heroism is something that's supposed to be special and like not unusual, and somebody or a group of people come out and really like take on the burden, like make it work, right? And that's usually something that's like not that common, but it's almost like the usual in Smash. You know what I mean?
It's
like,
oddly reliable in those dire moments.
Since Apex just passed, you remember what happened in Apex 2015? My friends, I didn't go to that one, but my friends, the roof came in, all the TOs got into a room together and figured out, okay, we can get this other venue and Twitch, like it is wild how many stories that are like similar like type stories are just within, and like every like community or like every like group of people who works on an event has like so many of those, and it's kind of absurd. And it has its charm, but also and I agree with Jack on this, is it's not exactly sustainable, and it's why a lot of people get burnt out or like things get kind of weird,
Yeah, there's a very small percentage of people who can make this work as their primary money-making career option, and then the rest, I mean, I'm in the category of someone who's able to monetize a little bit, and I'm thankful for that. But then I know when I go to Big House and I get to do something with, and you were there, so I'm bringing this up for those of you who don't know. I met Flashburn in person. I was so excited. I tried to be cool about it when I came up to you while you were behind 5 monitors or whatever it was behind the stage at Big House 10. But I'm, so thankful for people like you to be able to make all this stuff happen at big tournaments. But when I went there, I didn't expect to be paid for that, to be on the live stage and talking about, the upcoming weekend, the bracket, the melee, the stuff with Jake and with Oates. And I was perfectly happy about that. But I could imagine myself in 5 years going, but, and really it's because we're all under the understanding that it's a, and I tell this to people when they say to me, oh, you do podcasting, oh, you do it about esports, so is that like a good thing? Is it like a lot of money? Is it not a lot of money? Like they try to ask me like, could you do more with it? And they don't understand. So the way that I try to describe it to them is we're all sort of fighting for like a really small scrap heap compared to the feast that you're picturing everybody getting a chance at. And instead of a pie, it's more of like the crumbs that are left, because esports is still at large. It is tough to monetize, especially when you have something like FTX happen with TSM recently. I mean, that's a tough blow to their brand and identity and business. I hope TSM.
These guys went out of business went bankrupt several times.
Several times, yeah.
And now I think they're a part of the the Activision network or something like that, or maybe Blizzard specific. I just know that MLG does Overwatch League, stuff like that.
Right, sure.
And Overwatch has its own. Anyway.
So when it comes to Melee, when it comes to Smash, we have seen very little, and up until this year, no support from Nintendo, right? And that's what it is. You have to understand that going in, that if you want to do stuff, if you want to create things, if you want to be a top player, if you want to be a commentator, you have to understand that it's this always going to be more likely, 99% likely, that you're going to have it be a side hustle or your hobby or like a passion project. It's not going to be all you got to do is go out there, get 1,000 subs. I mean, people like IBDW, who's a top 5 player, struggle to get 1,000 subs a month on Twitch, right? So that's what it is. That's what you have to understand. And if you can make peace with that, you have a better shot at not burning out. But even still, for somebody like me, I say to myself, I don't want to burn out. I don't want to put too much expectations into this. But after a while, you can't help it. That's the part that gets me. You go, this is cool. Oh, I wish I could do this more. My job is starting to seem less and less appealing now. I'm like, the IRL job. I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to talk about Melee and be paid to do it, or whatever, right? So that's what happens. You can catch yourself getting a little wishy-washy.
Yeah, I feel that. I think I can't. It was like a Vice documentary or something like that I watched recently. If you can't tell, I watch a lot of like YouTube and just general stuff about everything. I want to say it's about voice acting, but so there's a video about voice acting, kind of like people who kind of like do like their side hustle with, like, they're not the super big voice actors, that you see in like everything. But they do what they do, and they say like, oh, so you would say that voice acting is your full-time job, but do you have another job, whatever? And it's like, oh, I wait tables, or like, oh, I'm like a teacher, like, oh, I work at like a factory, something like that. And they say like, oh, I have another job, so I can make the main thing like my full-time job and stuff like that. It's more and more, I guess, similar to that in Smash, and especially when you bring up like IBDW, like, and other people who are like literally at the top. Like if you think about like IBDW and like other like very, like, literally the top whatever percentage, like the very top players who should be like the one that the people that everyone know, at least on Twitch and like with subs and stuff like that, it's not quite the same. It's like still difficult, and like it's even at the highest end, with like Mango being the outlier because Mango's got so many other things going on. Like the top Melee, I guess like the top Melee, like I don't want to bring it down to just earnings, but like the top Melee, I guess, people like making their I guess making their living, it's still hard, you know, and like even at the top end. And uh of course the other top players also, you know, they have their sponsorships, you know, they have other deals and stuff like that. But in terms of just like just playing the game, it's pretty hard. And that includes like going with the stuff around the events and stuff like that. Uh yeah, there's especially with the whole thing about the Nintendo support, which I will say like you know, a lot of people say like, oh, Nintendo does this that, and then there's people who are like, oh, actually they don't do anything, and people, you know, I'm not I have to work with Nintendo a fair bit, and I'm not at liberty to say a lot of things, so I won't. But it's just I just will tell people it's not as clear cut. It is both as simple as it seems, but it is also not. It's I really can't say too much about it,
No,
unfortunately. But
you're fine, Flashburn.
yeah,
I understand NDA. It's all good.
yeah.
We had JDMH, another example of somebody who works officially in capacity
Hmm.
because Panda. Everybody in Panda works with Nintendo because Panda is the reason why Nintendo started to do the Panda Cup. Anyway,
Yeah,
it is
more or
it is
less.
very little delicate line to ride. We
Hmm.
the my perception is they're doing something, but it's kind of like, I mean. Look, we've been doing this for such a long time. We put on these amazing events. There are people like you who work tirelessly and almost 72 hours straight over a whole weekend. And, you know, it doesn't have to be on the level of an NFL football game where everybody is able to get paid seemingly reasonably well. I mean, gosh, I hope that the people who work at those stadiums and are you know, I watched the behind the scenes video for, okay, this might be of interest to you. Actually, I'll look it up while I'm describing it. So I'm a big Eagles fan.
Hmm.
I love watching the Eagles, the football team. And they have obviously, when you go to Lincoln Financial Field to watch a game, that is a spectator experience unto itself. It's very separated from watching the game on TV or listening on the radio. When you go there, it's about, well, I mean, I don't really care so much about cheerleaders, but I'm talking about the drum line, the cheerleaders, all the jumbotron screens
The
displaying
spectacle.
stuff, the music that plays in between each down during the game, and you're there with 70-ish thousand other fans and screaming your heads off and getting drunk, all that stuff. Super fun. And so this behind the scenes video, I'm seeing these people, they have these stream deck boards that are humongous. There's like more than 5 buttons on the stream deck. It seems like it's like 30 or 50 70 buttons that you have to be like actively keeping track of, and there's a director. She's like talking to 30 people at once around the stadium about different cameras this and different audio that. And I hope that they are paid lots and lots of money to do that. So when I think about it for Melee, and we have for the big tournaments like Big House, you'll have 70,000 plus people tuning in for top 8 grand finals, that kind of thing. And we are able to put out something as a community, mostly by the community. That's where I go. I don't think that even unto this day, from my own perspective, and I'll just keep it to my own perspective. I won't ask you about it, but I always think I still don't think that Nintendo puts like the amount of attention or respect into that. I think that we're still not valued at the level that I think the people like you and somebody like Juggle Rob or Sheridan Boback, people who care so much about the big tournaments, who do everything they can to make sure they run well, especially Sheridan and Boback, by the way, who had to deal with having to go from January to April. I can't imagine, because we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to just book and then having to switch it over. I was really happy to participate in my own small way for the Genesis stream. That was awesome. But I thought to myself, oh, we're the larger community doesn't necessarily understand everything going on behind the scenes, because how could you? But when we're talking about the big TOs or the big tournaments that we try to make the best of the best. This is our community at its finest. I still go, for all the work that we do, I don't know that it's always noticed or appreciated as much as it should be, monetarily or otherwise.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Also, I was gonna say, as you were talking about, like, you know, going to see an Eagles game live, you know, it's just so different. As a Browns fan, I can't relate. So,
Aw.
uh, you go and you lose. You go and you see your team lose, and that's pretty consistent. But anyway,
The dog pound runs strong. Apparently, you have remained a passive or active fan, even despite all the shenanigans throughout their however long they've been like this. I think there was one season that they played really well back in the 90s. Didn't they go to the AFC Championship game in the 90s?
I think so. There was one good season, and of course we were. I think Browns were amazing before the Super Bowl was before the conferences were aligned that way. But
oh yeah, back in the day, yeah,
like way back,
back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah. I guess the whole thing with like the production line of like everything. Yeah. If you go if you see the back of like say Genesis or the backstage of Genesis or of Big House or whatever, and you think that's crazy, I mean, yeah, if you put it in perspective, like, yeah, it feels pretty crazy, and like even me who like knows the deeper levels of it, it still feels like pretty crazy, but it is pretty small. It is very small compared to what you see backstage of the LCS finals in Chicago, the Grubhub Feeding Frenzy, which Waveform did as well, or when I worked at Rocket League Worlds doing the LED operation and stuff like that, or or something like an NFL game or something like that. There's just so many levels of it. I'm glad that. Interesting enough, it seems like a lot of people were actually like rather like a scrappy crew, and it's because of like the amount of like money that can be put into everything. Hopefully, like these next 3 weekends with like main stage, Smash World Tour finals, and I can't believe they're all three in a row.
Are you at all 3 in a row, Flashburn?
For my personal health and safety, no, thank God. I am at we were gonna try to do main stage, but they're really trying to go in house this year. From what I understand, and beyond
BTS, you mean?
Yeah,
right, sure.
Yeah, and then generally Smash World Tour and like BGBC events are done with a particular set of people. Sometimes we get in them, sometimes we don't. But they're mostly keeping with their main crew. The Panda Cup finals, that's gonna be us, and there's gonna be some interesting stuff. We still gotta figure out a whole lot. But it should be a good one. We're all working very hard of it. That's gonna be definitely one of the fancier Smash shows, and like I guess I'll do a little free advertising for Panda. But yeah, don't miss that one. We're gonna really do it up big for that one.
I'm really excited to see. Okay, so when it comes to a circuit, it adds a little bit more interest to the goings on of a Melee tournament, right? When there's a little bit more of stakes beyond just this one tournament. I think that some people might struggle with the concept of watching Melee where they go, okay, well, if there's a big event every other weekend, it seems, especially this year, ever since April, it is, I mean, August was, okay, not August, July felt like every single weekend something crazy was happening. Crazy. And you would know better than me because you went to some of these or all of these. So I'm thinking about maybe perhaps the average viewer going, well, what's the reason to care? And that's why circuits have always been appealing to the Melee community and trying to show to our friends or people that we encounter at an airport, like, you should care about this because it's going to add up to this big event at the end of the year. So I'm excited to see for Smash World Tour and for the Panda Cup. I think if you do a little bit of extra stuff and if you can capture a really hyped top 8, I think that sets it to such a high level, it really snowballs into the next year. So I'm hoping to, for someone who has no idea what's all going into the Panda Cup finale or the Smash World Tour finals, I'm excited to see what all that is going to actually entail. I'm also really excited for Melee because, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. To me, this is so cool. We don't have a clear-cut number one right now, and after 7-ish months of competition, you could theoretically, especially back in the days of Armada Hungrybox, it could just be a 2-person race, or by now you would go, yeah, Armada's got this locked up, or Hungrybox somehow won a bunch of events in the fall, and this is dumb. He's probably going to be ranked number 1, and that's what happened. And so we have Zane, Mango, IBDW, and there's one other person here that I'm insulting by forgetting. AMSA, gosh, yes, thank you.
Arguably HBox could make it. Like if he takes like 2 out of these next 3, argument. Or if Jmook wins all three, maybe he's the best.
Sure. I mean,
that's a
we
wild
hope.
timeline.
We hope. I mean, I'm a big J Mook fan. I like. Come on, it's 2022. It's chic. It would be so cool, but it's looking very unlikely at this point. I sadly say, as a sad J Mook fan now, but if all three were won by J Mook, I guess you could say. Something that was interesting, I was watching a Mango video about Apex 2022, and somebody had in his chat said that Hungrybox now has losing head-to-head matchups with the other top players that are in the conversation for number one. And I was like, interesting. I mean, if you win 3 big tournaments at the end of the year, that means a lot. But if you have mostly all losing head-to-head matchups, doesn't that? I mean, that's such a tough hurdle to overcome, and you might not be able to flip any of them in time. Even if you do win all 3 main stage, Panda Cup, and Smash Tour finals in a row, that'd be interesting to see what happens if Hungrybox were to win all 3. That would be plot armor
Truly
in the highest, second
chaotic.
only to Mango winning all 3. That's the plottiest armor to happen. I don't see that actually going down because the Eagles are good. It's Mango's birthday month, and there's nothing he hates more than going to Melee events in December. So,
yeah, man, it's such a wonder that this year, like as you said, just before that, like so many events, like not only have the storylines and like the where the top end like sits, it's just like it's shifted all over the place, and you would think like typically when something wild happens, it's like, oh, let's say Jmook gets second at Genesis, and then like nothing happens for like 2 or 3 months, and then like you got one other event, and then he gets like 17th, and it's like, oh, maybe it was but what's so wild about this year is so many things have changed, like since coming back to live events, and then in addition to that, they've consistently like shown like that it's actually different now. Not just not just with the fact that no M2K, or like certain players like missing in attendance for a lot of things, like no Wizzy at most events, but even then, it's just there have been so many events this year, and they've consistently shown that this is very much a new generation. I've been around. I remember like I don't know when I just wrote out like when the eras of like when I consider eras, stuff like that. I would say like I'm a pre-doc kid.
Right.
I remember like
you and Riot Beat, shouts out.
Yeah, I remember watching episode 0. If do anybody in the chat, if you know about episode 0 of the Smash doc, or of the Smash Bros doc, it's if you know, you know.
It was part of the like the Kickstarter thing, right? Had episode 0 to be like proof of concept. I know what I'm doing. Wasn't that part of that?
It was just over that first tournament, game over. And I think the funny thing that went around, which I'll say is true, but it could be very well just a meme, is that no live person talking in that like short mini doc actually was a Melee player. They're all just paid actors to just like act like they were there or something like that. I've heard this from so many people, but it could be another one of those like somebody made up a meme and it became reality to many people.
Well, I mean, we know that the Samox has been occasionally guilty of splicing some certain things together. I think it was Chillin, shouts out to Chillin, his rewatch of the doc and going, that's not exactly how that went down. And Chillin would be the one to remember because he was there. So I'll at least believe a few of the disputes anyway.
Yeah, but so like being like from like all the way back then and just kind of seeing, I guess we called it like post brawl, I guess was when I started. But like it's post brawl into doc into.
Right. I call that the dark ages between 09.
Yeah, I also, yes, that is another name for it indeed. But yeah, like all the way into then we have the era of the 5 gods, and I was there when it really like people who are coming in playing more recently, they don't realize how like truly. But like you said, it's like, oh, it's like a 2 or 3 person race. Like, oh, Armada's winning everything, HBox is winning everything, Mango randomly wins MLG 2013 or whatever, something like that. It's like it just this like series of how many things, and like I remember when like the top, like not even just like the gods, but like the top, I want to say like top 20 was like super consistent, because it was the 5 gods, then Leffen, and then like Wizzy, Plup, and then like or like Wizard Plup and then like Axe and then like SFAT or like S through J or West Balls or something. It was like so consistent. Like you really could just like I wouldn't be surprised if people who were there could like essentially like within like a one or two placement like being off could name like the top like 15 to 20 people. I think Toph did a video on that recently where he like names, oh, can you name the top 100 from like this year or something like that. That was pretty funny. Yeah, and like now the landscape, like everything's so different. Like people who have been playing for for like a shorter time than I have, you know, and like people that I weirdly enough like played before they were. I think I played Zane in like pools at like a big house in like 2015 or 16 or something like that. It's super wild seeing how that's all coming through, and again, just like with so many events this year, I was actually gonna go through like just, and I was gonna go through my list because I keep a list of like what I've done in like the certain amount of time, because you mentioned there were a lot of events this year because it was, you know, the first year back.
You got to tell me, Flashburn. You got to tell me what you've done.
So let's see. So on the list, so it starts at Genesis, and then Low Tide City, and then Combo Breaker, which is the FGC event, and then there was the Hold That L, which was I think
Hold That L7, where Ben reversed 3-0'd or J-Flex or at least beat him 2 sets. Hold That L7, right?
Yeah, and then there was a DreamHack that had DreamHack Dallas that had Melee it, although I was doing Rocket League at there. Battle of BC4, which is pretty wild. You know, I call it like in fighting sports we have, you know, like the walkout, the walk-off knockout. Like in MMA, you know, usually when you like rock somebody, you're supposed to jump on them and continue hitting them until the ref calls you off and says it's over, right? But sometimes you have like the really heavy-handed fighters who just like land that hit and they're like, no, he's gone, you know, and then the ref like jumps in, but he's like, nah, and you call it, that's the walk-off knockout. And I call that moment where Leffen four-stocked HBox in game 3 and like that's the walk-off 4-stock, and we got that shot all the way down there. That was crazy. And then the weekend after that, I believe the 2 weekends after that was CEO, and then there was Evo and like RLCS Worlds, and then there's Riptide, and then there was Big House. I love how you just
brush past Evo, one of the biggest events of the year for esports. It was crazy.
Keeping it to Smash at least. And like these are not including events that like I didn't get to get. For example, I didn't get to go to Apex, but yeah, like Big House straight into Ludwig.
Yeah.
And then this final year dash of just main stage SWT Panda Cup. It's like, man. And then one thing I was saying is even though of course we are very focused on making sure this year ends with a bang. You know, we're already looking, like most orgs are just looking, okay, what are we doing for 2023? And how can we make, like, what are we going to keep? What are we going to get rid of? And how can we make what we're keeping or new things better? You know, we're in that point of the year. We're not to overlook what's going on, but yeah, it's important. And like with the amount of crazy things that have gone this year, like Big House was like crazy, especially, you know, after the cancellation and everything, you know, it is like how it came back in such crazy force, and how the event and the result was just so insane. You know, it just you could not have predicted how this went, you know, even just leading up to it. Everyone, and it was so surprising at Big House hearing how many people were like, you know what, I think Amsa could win this, you know.
And we'd heard it before. I think it was Smash Summit 12 or 13 where, no, it was 12, because Amsa was buzzsawing everyone until he came across IBDW in winners, and it was like, oh no, because IBDW buzzsawed him instead, and it was so sad because we all thought only he could have gotten past Cody, then Amsa wins Smash Summit 12, that'd be so cool. And then yeah, he moves to Canada, and within a month is winning Big House. Super cool. So many wonderful pistachios consumed that weekend. Wonderful pistachios carried me super hard. I would have paid for a lot more food if I didn't have free pistachios to constantly snack off of at Big House.
Yeah, there'll be more of that at Panda Cup Finals, I believe, if our floor plan is correct.
That's exciting. I wish I could go to stuff like that, but I can't afford to go to every single or to a lot of events. The next big one for me will be Genesis 9. Will you be doing that as maybe with Melee Everyday Waveform, or is that going to be? I think BTS has kind of been like the name behind the broadcast for Genesis in the past couple of years. I know it was VGBC into somebody else into BTS, if I recall correctly, but I don't know. I was not there. for a lot of Melee history, following along line by line. I got more involved, I mean, as a podcaster, especially in 2021, in the beginning of 2021, but I kind of would say I was participating in the community since the end of 2018. That's my timeline.
Yeah, for I'm not like we're not officially locked in, but I will say it's likely. I don't know. I don't think I can get in trouble for saying that, but we did it last year or this year, and it went really well. And also, we did the Genesis stuff, to try to make sure everything. So I think it's like the situation seems pretty like solid. Like things are still getting figured out. Like we have been actually in planning for Genesis 9, or I should say like Sheridan and them. And then of
Right,
course
sure.
in talks with us. So I think it's safe to say that like I no guarantees, but I think so. Yeah, there's so many like events like just thinking like they're already with these events you have to plan them so far ahead. And actually, so I was going back to something that I forgot to bring up earlier. So with all these events and everything, I guess it's kind of like bringing up like a quasi drama that people had. But I just remember when something you were talking about earlier, reminded me of the whole argument of like, oh, like TOs are like this idea of like OTOs, like they make so much money, like difference of like pay versus like staff, like the staff versus the players, and like TOs or whatever. It's just like,
Right.
what the heck, like we make these events and stuff like that. And I'm just sitting over here in my production corner, just like, I'm, yeah, y'all, y'all know, like most of the people who make these arguments and like talk this mess, I feel like don't really know a whole lot. I guess one of the reasons why I kind of want to like start showing my face and like spreading what I know around more is to give people more transparency, because I think I guess it's not like the biggest issue, but like I think something that is important, especially when we are at the end of the day, we are a smaller like community, like at least in comparison to like if you compare us to any like major sport, like I don't think your average NFL watcher really thinks about the workplace politics of the broadcasting is like, oh, like ABC or like the big broadcasting networks or whatever. That stuff, it's been standardized over years and everything, and people don't have to worry about it. It's fairly like it's standardized. But again, like we said, esports is the Wild West in many ways, and even though it's like it can be like pretty okay in some other circles, we don't have that luxury. And I think what I like to say about Smash in particular is we are a niche of a niche, or we're of a niche of a niche. Because if you think about it, you've got like popular culture, and like even though esports and like video games is now, I would say, pop culture, so at least that's not a niche anymore.
For sure.
But then esports is a niche, so it's like, okay, esports is a niche, and then of that niche of esports, like I would even say like League of Legends Worlds was pretty big this year. Like there are certain esports that are big enough to arguably not be super super niche depending on where you live. But then below that you've got fighting games, which is a niche below that. As well as it seems like events like Evo and Combo Breaker and other stuff like that with FGC go. It's still pretty difficult, but like I understand why there's a different look at that. But then below that, we are even a smaller niche, because within fighting games, and we usually get lumped in with that, we're Smash, which is an even smaller subset. Because I always kind of say that like fighting games to the grand esports world is kind of like Smash to the rest of the fighting game community, and I would say for different reasons, but it's like I don't know. I don't really know what compels people to kind of like start bringing up these like concerns they have about certain, I guess, like, would you call them like payout structures or whatever, just like the politics of like how people get the bag, and like how are people making things work. Because at the end of the day, we all do want to make a living doing what we can. We're not trying to like, well, maybe some of us, but we're not trying to just be out here making Bezos bucks. We all just want to do what we love, because that's what everybody wants to do, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and as you were saying earlier with the whole thing of just like, oh, you podcast, like, oh, it sounds like it's so glorious. It's I think that comes from a lack of understanding of like how this works, because a lot of people think like, oh, streaming, especially all the jokes made about during the pandemic. you can stay home and stream, and look at this Ludwig guy. He's making $1 billion, and yeah, if you can just like do what he does, you could probably do it too. But like, it's not that easy. It's a lot of work. It's also not something that happened overnight. And like Ludwig is like, I remember when Ludwig was bothering Shakespeare and I about commentary blocks at was it a Full Bloom 4 or something like that. Like the come up is wild. And that stuff, like, you got to be lucky, you got to work hard, and like,
you need a slime as well. Let's be real as well. Yeah.
Hey, like, there's so many factors to it, but a lot and so that's only from like the personality side of things. But you're like, okay, so I'm not like you were saying, when you're younger, you're like, oh, am I like potentially like a top player type? Can I make my stand doing that? And most, 99 point whatever percent of people, no, you can't, because there's only so many people can be the best. So you're like, okay, well, what do I do? Do I go into like, content creation or like, event production? And even then you realize that, oh, that's like still really hard. You think it's like a normal job, like, oh, I can apply to get a job at doing this thing as long as I have credentials, I'm a good worker, it should work out. It is still not that easy, and especially where we are. Like, there are people who can like become like I guess like broadcast techs or whatever at like bigger esports, but like we don't have that luxury. Like, the people, it is, there's a reason why people actually know who is behind the cameras at these events. Like, people who know who I am, like, I don't think that almost any like random League of Legends fan would know who directed Worlds this year, or who was like anybody like higher up on the broadcast staff, so like, and it goes almost back to the whole heroism thing. I don't know. It's like, it's a whole thing. But yeah, I guess my main thing was the whole, I want to elucidate and kind of clarify a lot of these things that people have, so they stop getting into these weird, like, weirdly, like, just like acting like they're justified Twitter arguments about like, who's getting what, or like how are people making money, because, and I get that some of them are bad faith arguments, but like other people are doing it because they think they're like, oh, I want to make sure everyone is taken care of. And I get that, but you don't do it by having a knife on Twitter. It's not very helpful or conducive to the problem.
No one has better described, and Emp Lemon is controversial within Melee because of his Hungrybox doc, but like, he says it in a way that I thought was the best explanation. Like, there are people who don't care about video games, but some do, and there's some who don't care about Nintendo, but some do. And there are people who don't care about Smash, but some do. There are people who don't care about competitive Smash, but some do. And it goes down and down the line. And look at any local that's not NYC Melee or not the mid lanes of the world, or I forget what NCPR stands for the New England Melee locals, but you will have 5 to 10 people watching your weekly out in Pennsylvania and Lancaster County for our events, okay? Because we don't have big flashy names, or even if you have something like and I love Deer, so I'm not trying to be mean when I talk about the fact that I did not actually tune in to GMO this weekend. That was partially because I was traveling back from Colorado, partially because trying to catch up on stuff. And I said to myself, I'm going to tune into Top 8 today. And I did not. So like that's the unfortunate thing. I'm the super supposed to be engaged person, but I wasn't watching. And let me take a stab at Top 8 average viewer for GMO Fall Edition this past weekend. Did it do more than 8,000 for the Top 8? Did it do about 12 for Grand Finals?
Not quite. not by, yeah, not by any metric like that, especially in this current time. Also contributing to like the fatigue. This was as much as I like tried to talk Deer off of it, doing it the weekend after American Thanksgiving with main stage SWT and everything coming. That's like, oh yeah, this really is the only weekend we can do it. So the hand that was dealt.
It's tough. It's tough. So like I'm thinking about there are players playing in that event and people like you throwing the event on, putting it on, like, and of course an online event probably has slightly fewer threads, but it's still work to put that all together and to run the broadcast, to have commentators show up, do all that stuff. Player wrangling, oh, you think it's tough at an event? It is just as tough at home when you think they'd be stuck at their computers, but no. They are unresponsive at very bad, inopportune times. So that all to say, it's still a lot of work to do an online tournament. And if you're not getting super views, like, what's the problem? Is Melee dying? No, Melee is exactly what it is. It's a 20-year-old game that 21-year-old game that people don't treat the same as an NFL football team. We just we're just out here trying to get people interested that are younger than 25. When somebody like OG Kid comes around, or there's a player, I don't want to get the tag wrong, out in Colorado, who I was seeing in Hada's chat when I was out there with Hada. The one night that I was in Colorado for a week, but there was one night where I went to Hey Hada's. We did a podcast together in his room doing a stream. It was super fun. One of the Colorado players, who's apparently is a 12-year-old, came into chat and was saying hello, saying what's up, and I was like, oh my gosh, somebody who's OG Kid's age is playing Melee. This is awesome. And very good at getting rest setups. I was just getting sauced on very hard, but that's okay. I'm a bad player, so that's all good. When you have a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old who's playing Melee competitively, the rest of us go, yes, because we know how hard it is to do that. There's just too many games out there that are infinitely easier to get a hold of. You just go click, it's on your computer, you're all set to go. Some of these kids don't even have computers. They just have iPhones or tablets or
play Fortnite.
Or a Switch. Yeah, and they go, well, I play Ultimate, and Ultimate is like the best game ever. And I go, you have much to learn. You know, you probably don't even know what Brawl is. Which is unfortunate, because Brawl is such a fun game and actually does have some sauce to it, but also has Ice Climber, so that's a problem. Anyway, the whole thing of it is, when we talk about Melee being really, really small, that's what it is. Not the fact that we used to have a humongous audience compared to what we have now. I would say we had more casuals that would care to tune in on big events like Evo 2016, but we're not going to be able to recreate that just because we want to, or what have you. It takes people like J-Mook coming up, surprising the field, and everybody just starts talking about it on social media and maybe draw some interest. I think that revived certain people who didn't watch Melee events all throughout the pandemic. I think J-Mook revived a lot of interest in Melee, in my opinion, just for a more casual perspective, because people on Reddit or Twitter are like, oh my gosh, Melee has a new top player. That's awesome. I don't think that's possible for every year of Melee's life. I don't think there's going to be an unknown outside of top 50 player who starts competing for top 5 in the world in 2023. I don't see that happening, but there needs to be a certain level of somebody new coming along. I think that's what helps the most from my perspective, without saying, oh, how do we change the stream, or how do we change the event for the people who attend the event, make it more fun for them. That's your job, or Deer's job, or Sheridan's job. My perspective is like, how when we're watching it on the screen, are we seeing something that is a little bit different than what it was before? Because Jen, my lovely wife Jen, I'll start talking to her about how cool this thing is that I have it queued up on our TV. I'm watching a top 8 of an event this year, whatever event it might be, just not GMO fall, unfortunately, but I had these other events like Genesis, or not Big House. I was there at Big House, or Phantom down in Australia. And I'm going, is this so cool? She's like, I mean, it looks kind of the same as it always has, Jesse.
Yeah, it's definitely there's like a barrier. There's definitely a barrier to understanding, just even getting into the scene. It's very interesting. I feel like there's another Core A video just talking about like people talk about barrier to entry for Melee, like just to play all the time. But you have to think about like the barrier to just even understand or enjoy. There are people who can just like watch whatever. Like, weirdly enough, my family, because my grandfather went to OSU, were like massive OSU and like college football fans, even though they do not understand anything about how football works. I'm
That's
like the only
awesome.
person who like actually played. Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't. You would not expect my family to be massive Buckeye fans, but here we are.
No,
Um,
but like more importantly, it's also hilarious. Like I can just picture them freaking out and being exciting that something happened, and then going, "Wait, I don't understand. Wait, did that not actually happen? Wait, what happened?"
yeah,
Because they think that something happened, but it was actually the. Because that's all of us with football. When you're young and you're watching football, and you think you know what's going on, and you go, "That was really cool," and somebody in the room goes, "No, that did no. You're confused." And you turn red, and you go, "Ah." Football's hard to understand when you're a kid.
it is.
Okay.
It is. I will say like that's what I actually really like about fighting games and Smash in particular. It's actually such a great it's a great spectator sport because you have two people on the stage and you try to knock them off and sometimes you hit them really and they go flying and it's just like whoa, it's like even if it's like just somebody like if somebody missed rest and got hit like full charge F smash or something like that with Falco and they just like die off the side. um that's why things like Stomp Knee are so hyped to people who just don't get it. It just looks cool, right? Even though that is the like in the current day that is the most passe thing like to actual players like Stomp Knee. Sigh, it despite Squid the Cat's best efforts, but
Double Falcon Punch.
yeah, it's just where was I going with this? It was just like the understanding of just the barrier to entry for like even just understanding and like enjoying the game and also like the idea of like that we are a smaller community than we think we are. And I think that's what it was. So there is a great video that I can't find and it's by somebody who's redacted, but they said that one of the interesting things, this actually wasn't in reference to what I'm talking about, but in reference to why like there's the prevailing thing that like smashes are weird, like we're weirdos and we don't shower or whatever, those classic things. But like the idea that smashers are weird in some way. What they said in this video was that Smash is a particularly unique game because something about the culture and the game itself um almost can like substitute for like a person's entire social life. And when you live, breathe, and eat and like just consume like everything Smash, and it becomes your life, it's like there are not too many games who like really can like socially wise like Smash does. Like how it works is like you can be somebody who like lives, breathes, and eats like League, and like play solo queue 16-18 hours a day like some people do, but you don't meet people doing that like almost never. And even if you do, they're almost always online. You rarely meet them in person.
Right.
That's what like this beauty of like, and I will say it started with Melee because no online play. You had to go and meet people in person, and like meet people from your region to play. Otherwise, you'd have nobody to play. And even in the current day of online, even if you're like you think you're like hot stuff online, well, you got to go to a tournament and prove it in person, or else you might just be like you just might be full of it,
Or either that or get eliminated by Bobby Big Balls at your given online event because BB be grinding out there.
Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, so like the idea like people forget that we are, like I said, a niche of a niche of a niche or whatever it is. Even though your community seems so large and like it seems like so many people care about Smash, and like a lot of people do, but it's like the level that you may think it is, or like the amount of like I guess resources they could put in proportionate to how many people care about it and the levels that they care about it. Like another Core gaming video where like the levels, the circles within Smash. You have like actually a good comparison is like almost like a gotcha games. If you've heard of the term whale, like they're like games like that are usually propped up by whales. Well, Smash is basically propped up by like whales, not necessarily in the financial sense, but like in the fanaticism sense. It is like a
Ludwig,
wonder that it's a wonder that like I know I have met so many people through Smash, and like there's a good amount of them who like are like there's people who are known, like you're known for your efforts in the Smash content creation area. I'm known for like my time as a TO and also for like the broadcasting, even though I don't show myself out in public too much just because like I'm usually behind the camera. But like you can still meet so many people who are like active or like readily like a part of the community that like kind of prop it up. That's why like everything, like whether it be bottom of the Smash Mountain or a top player doing whatever they do, it's all a part of the ecosystem. And it's still kind of absurd to think that you can know like most people who like you can know like most of the relevant players in that sort of space, right?
Right,
There's still a
top to
couple that
bottom.
come up. Yeah, and with how would I say it? It's like if you were to turn like again to a much bigger game like League, like can you like I can probably name like most of like the people who like are known for doing content creation in Melee. There's like so many more people who do content on different levels or even on a similar level or higher to like the amount like and like not everyone's turned down for Walt, you know, or something like that, or like making
Right.
like these more elaborate or like professional style videos. But then
Mm.
you've got like people who yeah, feasibly you could just start up a YouTube channel and you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna be a League YouTuber as a career. Like you see people like a Professor Akali who like literally makes a living off of just like helping people start League channels, and that is not even anywhere remotely possible for Smash. And you gotta be like, yeah, and the amount
That's
of like
awesome.
some people just you know you can like okay, well you're either a good player or your personality, you can do it off of that, you know. But even then, like the amount of personality you really have to have, like the only person who really matches that is like Mango, you know, because he's got so much reach and like the amount of things he does. And it's just like you said, there's not that much room. This is not the ocean, it is a pool, and we're all doing what we can to stay afloat essentially.
Grassroots. Let's just remind everybody, grassroots does not automatically equate to the stuff that you might see outside of Melee, other esports, or when you just go to a fast food chain. There's so many more people who are aware and interact with that fast food chain than the people that interact with Melee. It is what it is. But I don't want to be lost in the weeds for too much longer because I think we should start to get in the direction of wrapping up. What that entails, though, is Patreon questions. We already did one
Yes.
with beatboxing, but we have a few more here, and we also have a question from Jake Spear at the end. Don't let me forget. So, actually, wait, there were two. I already took one. Well, Ventus Official, who is a very big fan of Core A gaming videos. I mean, he will be over the moon that you reference Core A gaming at least 3 times. He'll be like, see, Jesse, watch more Core A videos. And I go, okay, I will.
I have watched all of them, I think. Like I really love his videos and like the way like he's definitely one of my favorite like YouTubers, I would say. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, the ones that I have seen, yes, I did enjoy, but I just go, not enough Melee. Or, I mean, I also pay attention to a lot of Eagle stuff in case that wasn't clear from the beginning to now. But Ventus Official wants to know, have you seen Baby Steps yet?
I knew he was gonna say this. I knew he was gonna bring this up. I have finally got time to watch shows again. It is on the list. Unfortunately, I am currently slogging it through all 300 plus episodes of Bleach so I can watch the new one because my fiance it's her favorite show. But that is on the list because I am such a big sports anime fan as well. It's like, yeah, and there's so many ways that relates to Melee as well. I remember a hilarious stream where like I think Leffen was talking smack about NMW for like relating something that Leffen said to like a Haikyuu quote, and then he countered with a Kuroko quote. I was like, is this what even? and for what it's worth, I like Kuroko more than Haikyuu, so I agree. But anyway, yeah, it's I'll get there, and I will let you know. Yeah.
Okay, so then this is the last question of the day from Jake Spear, who I had on recently, and I just, again, I'm gushing over the fact that it was like so cool to meet Juno, it was so cool to meet Flashburn, and you know, since Jake Spear participates with Melee Everyday Stuff, was there with you at LSI. I think I eventually, during our interview, just said, Jake Spear, can you think of a question that you would want me to ask Flashburn? So he said, what is Flashburn thinking? So he described you as a very steady person, which is cool because I would describe myself as that as well. Not a big rock the boat person, or not frequently in that category. So I prefer to just like, I'm loyal, and yeah, I like to be steady. So I that's the only context that he added. He just really wants to know what you're thinking, Flashburn.
I think in I guess the almost like philosophical sense of this statement, because especially after LSI, it was an interesting juggling act with the whole quad, which y'all saw, and I'm glad y'all liked it. I guess if I were to answer it in the way that Jake is probably asking, it's mostly that I'm just focused exactly on what I'm doing in the moment. To borrow a quote from Scar, which he's quoting from something else, was if you're living in the past, you're depressed. If you're living in the future, you're anxious, you're anxious. And then if you're living in the present, you're clear, or you're calm, something like that. I think it was like Scar and Toph show or something like that. And I just try to solve everything and like deal with everything in the moment as is. And it's very ironic because when I like have like casual conversations, I'm actually very very ADHD. I had like a lot of problems in like high school with like really bad ADHD. But I've just like, and like I never like got medicated or like I got diagnosed, but I never went through any treatment. I just have worked really hard on like handling it. But my fiance knows that some days it just gets the better of me and I'm just useless. I can't think straight. But
Right.
I guess in the sense of like when I'm thinking, when I'm like really trying hard, is I'm just thinking about exactly what I'm doing for the moment, and I'm trying not to think ahead, because thinking all over the place is what I do on the default. So yeah.
Yes, I don't know. I mean, I think there are people in my family and my lovely wife Jen who say maybe you should go and get tested for a variety of different things, because like suspicious. How broken is Jesse's brain? Although I don't try not to think of it in a negative way. I just always go
Me
like,
either.
why do y'all want me to go get tested, man? So I think about how when I'm at an event like Big House and I'm walking around in the room, in the venue, I should say, because it's quite a big room. We didn't even take up the full floor in that all B or C or whatever
Yep.
it was. I realized I go in a lot of different directions when I'm interacting with somebody one-on-one. My brain is still in the searching for something kind of space. And when I do these interviews, I think, oh, I could like interject with this. I can interject with that. I relate to the idea, and again, without self-diagnosing, and I haven't been officially diagnosed. I think about when somebody describes what you described to me of just having a hard time staying in one spot in your mind. You just instantly start floating away. I feel myself doing that a lot. I think what helps me stay in the moment is to deliberately tell myself, focus on something that's happening right now. Otherwise, if I autopilot, I'm definitely floating away, as compared to, it's kind of like the gamer lean. If I don't gamer lean, then I will be a lot less focused. So I don't know. It's cool to hear. It's cool to hear like you were able to kind of have clarity as to how exactly your mind works, and if you had to go through rough times in earlier in your parts of your life to get to that spot where you go, these are facts, but how do I take that and live my life as a person, and as compared to being just put down by this and not being able to succeed. I want to tell you, Flashburn, from my own perspective, I think that you've been very engaged with this conversation. I've enjoyed talking with you tonight, and I think that aside from all the cool stuff that you've been able to be doing within Melee, it's super cool, because I love. Not as much as Edward Bunning. That's a very niche reference, by the way. Hopefully somebody from Melee Stats is listening to this episode. But I think it's so cool that you get to have a lot of success within the Melee sphere, but you're also the romance stuff, finding a partner to live life through. I mean, it's amazing. So I'm super happy for you is what I'm getting at. I'm super happy for you that you have a lot of cool things happening for you right now. I'm excited to see what happens with Panda Cup and next year. I'm excited to see what we as a community do continuously. Do we get better at spreading the word, getting more people to watch, the more casuals to watch Melee? Do we have a Melee top 8 in a big, maybe like, I don't even know what they call it in San Francisco for the Warriors Stadium anymore, because I'm pretty sure it's not called the Oracle at this point, but whatever the new stadium is called, do we have top 8 there someday because it's Golden Guardians, X Warriors, X I don't know, Zane and Mango first to 15 on the basketball court with big old melee CRTs, and you and Juna are walking around going, "Oh gosh, why are all these HDMI cables here? Give me the composite ones," or whatever. I'm excited to see how that all goes. Excited to see you at a big event again. Those are the last thoughts that I have. Please, by all means, first of all, tell the people where they can find you if you want to shill your YouTube channel, which I will have to go and check out just besides the Luigi combo video, which again, I thought was hilarious. So I was like, wow, that is a Vine song and a half if I ever could remember one. Super fun. But where the people can find you, and also any final thoughts that you want to share.
Yeah, I will say for that specific video, that first edit, when the drop happens,
Yes.
that literally that clip, I had that clip happen. I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody. Like that, I had that clip, and then I heard that song, and I was like, that edit that I made, I was like, this was like the whole like. This just kind of brought. I was like, oh, well, now I have to make a combo video. This is. I was like, I could have just made it the one clip, but I was like, I'll extend it. Also, the weird Easter egg to that video is every down air in that video is a meteor, which is so if you don't know that Luigi's down air doesn't send out usually, you would think that it's a meteor by default. I didn't realize that until after. I was like, huh, the hell. Anyway,
and why is it not a true spike? That's not fair. Why are they be robbing these mid tiers of like actual good things? Like Donkey Kong could be better, Ness could be better, Luigi could be better.
True. I could complain. I could lament the mid and low tiers all day. But anyway, for me, yeah, you can. My YouTube is pretty inactive, but like I don't know, I would love to start uploading more content and like working on like video essays talking about like my time in the Smash community, or like the parallels of beatboxing and melee, because there's actually so wild how they're paralleled. But yeah, that would be a Flashburn 117 on YouTube. I should be the main one to pop up. Yeah, it should just be that. I'm on Twitter, as you can see over here.
Yeah,
at Flashburn117. If you're at an event, and I'm weirdly enough like not stuck behind a desk, you can feel free to say hi. Like I'm always willing to show people, because at the end of the day, like I said, what I really want to do is, especially after all my time, I want to give people transparency to like the true inner workings, because a lot of people think that it's weird, because in this sense they think that Smash community is small. It's like, oh, they kind of know everybody, and therefore like they know like all the Sheridans and the Juggle guys of the world. They think that they understand that everything goes on, but it's really not that cut and clear. And as much as it seems easier, like low effort but high reward to like seemingly call people out for things that are going like badly or like bad practices, it's just that, at least I will say, is hardly as simple as it seems in most situations. In situations like even with like the Nintendo kind of stuff. And I was gonna go into a whole thing about like Nintendo and like the difference between like the Nintendo Japanese sort of like culture behind business, stuff like that, but I'll save that for another
There's
time.
a YouTube video about that, I think.
Yeah,
surely there has to be one.
Yeah, and you brought up Emblem, and I remember the cult of Nintendo is just like that's more of a kind of like I guess a Nintendo hit piece, but like
overview.
I actually like Emblem's videos a lot as well, and some people don't like it, but
well, yeah, but they are well edited. I mean, I've watched most of them, and I go, okay, I learned something new today. The Church of Nintendo, that like I think, okay, again, because we won't do this for 30 minutes, but like just think of most companies enjoying the fact that they have super fans, and then look at Nintendo. They are about as good of an example of a company that does not enjoy the super fans as much as other companies might. They just are like, could you maybe just buy the new releases every time they come out for $60 and maybe not do anything extra after that? Because it doesn't matter if it's a tournament. It could be all kinds of other different ways that you put out your passion onto the internet. Nintendo goes, okay, well, smack. Not literally, but that's kind of what happens historically speaking. Just go look it up. You'll get it. For those of you who have not yet seen, the internet is a magical place, and you can learn all kinds of stuff.
It's true. And also sometimes you will get the smack. So as you said.
Any other closing thoughts? Sorry, I didn't mean to expand on that too much. Did you have any other thoughts, Flashburn?
I don't know. I guess like the main thing I just wanted everyone to know, like whoever watches any, like whether it be specifically this or anything that I'm involved with, is just like this is all, I'm sure there's a quote from a movie somewhere, but it's like just remember that everybody on the internet and like at these events, especially the fact that we play Smash where we really do got to interact in person a lot more. Remember that everybody's a human and a person. It's not like they're not just some weird like automaton, like just a robot on a Twitter account that like doesn't really matter. There's a lot to this community, and it was built off of like people interfacing like this. And even if you even if you don't agree with somebody, or you might not understand their point of view, or like you might both think that something is one way and they think it's another, just to remember that there's always something more to how things are going. And it's we're all gonna work together to figure out what the truth is of the matter,
especially if we have something so amazing to bring us all together. Flashburn, thank you so much for joining me. For those of you who want to see how Melee and beatboxing are similar, please tweet at Flashburn or DMs or what have you. Please, Flashburn, make a video about this someday soon. No pressure. You're only trying to get married, and throw more awesome, amazing Smash events for your part with the stream setups. So again, thank you for joining me on Bottom Smash Mountain. You can just stay there for a second. We're gonna play the outro, and then we'll come back and do thumbnail pose, and then we'll be done. But this outro is gonna play for about 25 seconds, and we'll be quiet again. You get it. But
Yep.
In the meantime, to the audience, let's just go ahead and say goodbye. Bye, peoples.